Hi there everyone, welcome to Dandelion Delphi. Today we're going to look at the Exemplar of 2018, question 3.1. So that is our OOP question, and we're going to first complete the class in this video, and in the next one we will then go to the main form and make use of this class object. So right at the start of question 3.1 will explain to you the object class. And then it also has a description of your attributes that is given. So there's an F email address, obviously that would be string, as well as name, and then date of birth, that is something that we will have to check what the data type is. And then F approved, they say, is a flag, and when they're saying it's a flag, they mean it's a Boolean variable. And this flag indicates whether the registration has been approved or not. So it will be true if it was approved, and then false if it wasn't. Now, often the question 3.1.1 will be our constructor, but in this instance, they actually gave us the constructor create as well as our toString function. Our first question, 3.1.1, is asking us to write an accessor method called getEmail. So press pause and I'll explain this soon. An accessor method is always a function, and it will have the result data type of the attribute that it's returning. So if email is a string, so therefore get email would also be a string. Do only one question at a time and then move on to the next one. I don't see any wording here indicating that it's receiving a parameter, and accessor methods don't receive parameters. It does not say it's returning a result, but you need to know that the word accessor method means that it is a function. Remember, your attributes here at the top is what's called encapsulated, and that means that only this class are able to use them. So to give our main form access to them, we have to write an accessor method. And here is my accessor method, the function getEmail, and it's returning a string data type because fEmail is a string data type. Remember, when you create these functions, they always have a data type, and remember to add the semicolon at the end, because then when you push Ctrl-Shift-C, the skeleton code will open. Now all I have to do in an accessor method is result, because every function has a result, and assign that result to the attribute or field that it is returning. Now it's your time to write this mutator method set approved, so press pause so I can show you the memo. The moment it says mutator method, we know that it is a procedure, but you can also see that it's a procedure because the word return or result does not appear in this question. And it is receiving a Boolean value, and the word receive is indicating that it has a parameter. It also told us that it has a parameter, but just the word receive indicates that we have a parameter. And you do not want to have more or less parameters than the question paper is asking you to create. The code inside of a mutator method looks very similar to a constructor create. In this instance, it's only receiving one value, and we're going to assign that received value to the attribute if approved. We are changing if approved, and that's why it's called a mutator method. So we're making changes to the attributes of the class. But it could also ask you to receive more than one parameter and then make changes to more than one attribute. Here is the signature of my set approved, and I'm receiving P approved as a parameter, that is a Boolean value, and I'm making a change to F approved. So that is why P approved is Boolean, because F approved here is Boolean, and that was given code. So then you push Ctrl-Shift-C. Remember, your procedure does not have a data type there at the end. And all this is doing is F approved is getting a value from my P approved, the parameter. Remember, when in our mutator methods and in our constructors, that F comes first in the alphabet and must always be on the left of the assignment statement, and then our parameters on the right, because the right gives the value to the left of the assignment statement. So 3.1.3 is what we would call an auxiliary method, as it's just doing some calculation for us. And we need to read carefully to see, is it a function or a procedure? That would be where we want to start. And I can see it's returning a value, so therefore it would be a function. And then I also need to check for parameters, and we can see here that the method must receive a value, and there is my parameter. And the return result of my function would be Boolean. And here you just have to test if the address is valid, testing if the email address starts with a letter from the alphabet, uppercase or lowercase, and no other character. Press pause and try it yourself. Did you note the wording at the top where it says write a private method? So we will always declare our methods as public unless we are instructed otherwise, as in this question. So after the declaration of my attributes, I then add my function test email. It's receiving an email address, which would be string, and it's returning a Boolean value whether it is valid or not. So then we push Control-Shift-C, and there are many ways of solving this question. But here is two examples for you. I started with my result is false, and then I test if the first character of the email address received is a letter between A and Z using my in operator, and take note of the uppercase because we want to test whether it is a letter from the alphabet and not have a program that is case sensitive. So it could have started with capitals or lowercase letters. And then the uppercase, the brackets go around the single character. And if this is true, then I change my result to true. But this is another way that we can code when we have a result of a Boolean value. We can put the condition there inside or on the right side of an assignment statement. And this will now test if this is true. And if it's true, a true will be stored in result. And if it's not true, a false will be stored in result. So in question 3.1.4, we are going to make a change to the given constructor create. Read this, try it yourself, and push pause so I can show you the memo. Just a little tip. If they are going to ask you to create your constructor or make changes to the constructor in this case, but not in the first question, so not as question 3.1.1, it usually means that whatever was created before this, like the question in 3.1.3, needs to be used inside of your constructor, as is the case in this question. So in my constructor create, I'm now going to add an if statement with calling the test email function. Remember, it's returning a Boolean value, so I can use it in my if statement, and sending it the email that was received in your constructor create as a parameter. That's now going to test email the function, and then I need to test if it's true. You can also leave this out because your if statement will automatically by default test if a Boolean function or Boolean variable or property is true. So if this does return a true, I am storing the email received as a parameter as if email, and if this function returns a false, I'm going to store error as the attribute if email. And here's the last method that you have to write for your class. So press pause and try it yourself. So we're writing a public method test age, and we need to determine if it is going to be a function or a procedure. And if I have a look here at the bottom, I see it's talking about a value that needs to be returned. And then also I need to double check to see if I have parameters. Yes, there it says I'm receiving the minimum age requirement as a parameter. And then I'm going to determine if they're old enough. To determine the age accurately, I suggest that you have a look at the function called years between. If you have a look at the appendixes of my Dandelion Delphi books, you will see there is a section called date functions, And the last one here is years between. Now, if you send it 2 dates, it returns an integer value with the correct number of years between 2 dates. Remember, my birthday, for example, is in October, and today we are still in May. So if I would calculate by just using my year of birth and deduct 2020, take 2020 and deduct my year of birth from that, I will already be the age that I am in October. But I don't want, that would be inaccurate because I'm not that age yet. If you are in grade 12, you will not be able to apply for your driver's license yet. So that would be an inaccurate way of calculating a date. Years between will now be calculating the date accurately, taking into consideration whether that date has passed or not. And also remember that you have to add date utils for all these functions to the uses of the unit that you are in to make use of them. And here is my signature for test age. I'm receiving a parameter, which is the minimum age someone must be. That obviously would be an integer. And I'm returning approved or not, and that obviously would be a string data type. So remember, your functions and procedures may have their own local variables as well as your constructor. So I've just declared age here as an integer, and I'm using years between to calculate the difference between the 2 dates. Important that they had to be date data types, and if date of birth, the attribute, was declared as a string. So I have to string to date this date so that I am able to use years between and calculate that age. I am just saying that result is assigned to rejected, and if the age is greater or equal to the minimum age. Remember, the minimum age means that they are allowed to be that age. So that's why there has to be an equal sign there. So if they are allowed, then I am changing my result to approved. Just a note, you can't use this method that we used here at the bottom of test email in here because my result is not Boolean. So this only works when your result is Boolean because I can't change it to approved or rejected. It can only change to true or false by putting a condition there on the right. This is now the end of your class, and it's a very good time to save. You should save a little bit more often, but good time to save and run your program. You won't get any output, but at least you can sort out any syntax errors that you currently have in your class. Thank you for watching Dandelion Delphi. In our next lesson, we will implement that class and use it in our form. For more information about OOP, you need to go to my book 3. Hope to see you soon!